Hello and welcome to video 18 in my Rigging in Maya series. You have now covered all the basics, so you should be able to build your own biped rig. So that's the first section of this course complete, and it only took 17 videos to do it. As we move into more advanced areas of rigging, I thought we would need a new creature to rig, something with a higher polygon count and that can be more geared towards film and TV rather than games. So I'm currently working on something special for you, and I will post updates in the community feed. Before we begin rigging the new creature, I wanted to cover a key part of the rig, and that's what's known as the ribbon. I will be using this a lot throughout the next section of this course, so it made sense to dedicate this first video to them. That way I'm not repeating myself, and if you're unsure you can just refer back here. In addition to the video, I also have a nice surprise for you, so stick around to see what it is. Now before we get started, I wanted to tell you about the Ant CGI Club. Becoming a member not only helps support the future of this channel, but you can also earn yourself exclusive rewards. These include course assets, models, rigs, and custom-made scripts, as well as access to the Ant CGI Club Discord server, which now has exclusive members-only areas. Click the join button below to find out more, or visit the link on the screen or in the description. Okay, so let's start by looking at what ribbons are and why they're so useful. Here we have what looks like a basic arm rig, similar to what you created previously. So nothing new here. If I turn on the arm tweak option here, you see we have some new controls to play with. I can control the arm as normal, but I can then use these controls to go in and adjust the shape of the upper arm, like this. The same with the forearm. And we can even adjust the position of the elbow. So as you can see, this arm rig is already a lot more flexible than the one we built before. But we can do even more with it. If I set Sign Blend to 1 and adjust the amplitude, you see we get some nice curves. If I adjust the offset attribute, we get a nice wave type movement, which can be animated. Let's hide the model, and let's make the main deformers visible. So here we have the ribbon, which is just a NURBS plane. Along it we have a series of joints. We essentially use the controls to change the shape of the ribbon. The ribbon then moves the joints, which then drive the main skeleton. We can move it, we can twist it, do anything we like with it really. Here we have the wave. Even with it deformed, we can still move the whole arm. You can see I've even used a ribbon to drive the spine. I'll make the tweak controls visible. As you can see, we have similar controls which we can use to animate the spine. This gives the animator a whole new level of freedom because they can pose the limbs and the spine and pull and push sections around. So essentially, ribbons make your rigs a lot more flexible and are perfect for a more cartoon style character. In this example we can see ribbons being used for the arms and the spine, but they can also be used anywhere else, as you will see throughout the rest of this course. They can even be used to make an advanced facial rig, but we will come to that later. So how do we build a ribbon? First you need a NURBS plane, and we use NURBS because they are more flexible than polygons. So as one area moves, it influences the area around it, similar to soft selection. You'll see what I mean later. Go to Create, NURBS Primitives, Plane, and open the options. We want the axis to be set to Z. This will make sure it faces down the Z axis and towards the front of the scene. Set width to 2.5 and length to 0.5. Make sure the surface degree is set to 3. We want a nice curve as the plane deforms, but we don't want too many control vertices, or CVs. U patches will dictate how many divisions we have along it. Set this to 8. V patches should just be 1. We don't want any divisions. Click Create. Let's rename this to base ribbon. If we select some CVs now and move them, we can see it has a nice curve as it deforms. OK, let's turn on the wireframe so we can see the isoparms, which are the vertical divisions. And we will hide the grid. So we have the 8 patches we required. What we need to do now is attach something to its surface, something which will follow as it deforms. So what we can do is use nHair, which seems a little strange, but bear with me. Go to nHair, create hair, and open the options. Just reset this. We want to set the U count to match the amount of vertical isoparms we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The V count should be 1, as we only want one hair follicle to be created down each isoparm. Change dynamic to static, because these hairs won't be simulated. If I click apply now, I'll just select the follicles so we can see them. You will see that they do not sit on each division, instead they are floating between them. So let's undo that. Now make sure edge bound is checked. And apply that. Now you will see that they are sitting perfectly. So that's the nHair added, but we don't need everything that was created. Delete the PFX hair and nucleus nodes. Also delete each curve group, which is beneath each follicle. And finally, delete the hair system node. The idea is you only want to be left with the follicles. Right, let's just quickly rename these. If I select some CVs now and enable soft selection, as I twist the surface you can see the follicles all follow, and they remain pointing away from it. Even as we adjust it, the neighbouring follicles also follow. So now we have a surface and a series of follicles which follow as it deforms. But we can't really use the follicles directly as they can't be rigged or skinned. They are just nodes locked to the NURBS surface. What we now need are some joints. As you know, these are essential for the rig. Go to Skeleton, Create Joints, and just create a single joint in the scene. You can hold X to make it snap to the grid. OK, just make this a little smaller. Maybe 0.25. So now we need this joint to follow the follicles as they follow the surface. The simplest way to do this is to just parent it. Let's parent it to the first follicle and reset the translations to snap it into place. Duplicate the joint another 8 times and we'll parent these to the other follicles. To quickly fix the position, just reset the translate attributes to 0. There we go. They are still a bit big. Actually, I'll change the size globally. Just set that to 1. That's better. I'm just going to disable joint selection up here. If I select to move some CVs now, you can see that all the joints follow. What's even better is the surrounding joints also orient themselves so they follow the surface of the model and they're following the selection. So we are getting a really nice arc here, all with one simple movement. To create this sort of setup manually would take a whole lot of nodes and constraints, and even then there wouldn't be a guarantee it would be stable. Even if we twist it this way, the joints all have an influence and remain locked to the surface. Okay, let's rename these to bind joint, because these will be the joints that eventually drive the model. If this was a rig for a game character, you would need to use a joint hierarchy, so these wouldn't be bound to the skin, instead they would influence the base skeleton. So we have the surface and the main joints, but animating all these would take time, plus you can't edit these joints directly. Remember that their position is dictated by the follicles, so if we move them, they won't do anything. All we'll end up with is the joints having then an offset, which would essentially break the rig. Instead, we need to think about influencing the main NURBS surface instead. Duplicate the first joint and move it out of the group. Let's just rename this to follicle_group. And close that. Might be better if we make this joint bigger, so we can see it better. And rename it to control joint 1. Duplicate it twice. Move these up here and reorder them. That's better. Holding V, I can snap the second joint to the joint in the middle of the surface, and the third control joint can be snapped to the opposite end. We can use these to move the NURBS plane now, which will then move the follicles and finally the bind joints. They won't do anything just yet though. Select the 3 control joints and then the base ribbon. Go to Skin, Bind Skin and open the options. Just reset them. Set Bind to selected joints and click Apply. We can now use the control joints to manipulate the surface. As we move and rotate it, all the other joints follow along. So we're essentially controlling 9 joints with just 3, but getting a really nice fall off. We can even twist the end joint like this. So this could be good for creating those roll and twist joints needed in bicep and forearm areas. If we move this away, we also get some sort of stretchiness because the joints remain equally spaced. So you can start to see how versatile these ribbons are and how they can dramatically improve your rigs. As a final step, we could add some simple controls. Let's create a NURBS circle, make it smaller, freeze the transforms, and delete the history to clean it up. Snap it to the first joint and duplicate it for the others. Let's rename these now. Root control, tip control, and middle control. And all we're going to do is parent the control joints to the controls. So now we can use the controls to pose the ribbon instead. This is all well and good, but it would be better to see it working with an actual model. Let's create a basic cylinder and bind it to the joints. Just make sure it has the same number of divisions as the ribbon, so it will deform better. And scale it to fit. We need it to be a little thinner now too. That looks okay, it is just a rough placeholder. Delete the history before we move on, and freeze the transforms. Okay, good. Now we need to select the bind joints, so the ones parented to the follicles, and then the cylinder. Go to Skin, Bind Skin. Just make sure 2 selected joints is selected. Good. It's just a quick bind, but it's only here to give us a rough idea of how the model would deform. As I move the control, you can see the geometry between this control and the next is evenly spaced. The same happens when I twist and rotate it. So things are looking more organic. Even with this basic model and quick weighting, it's deforming well. So you can imagine how smooth this would look on a higher resolution model, or even a subdivision surface model. That's just the basic ribbon setup, but there is more we can do. Because the bind joints movement is based off actual geometry, we can also use other deformers to get more precise shapes and animation. So this means we could also add a few blend shapes. Just reset these. I need to duplicate the base ribbon model. Because I copied a skin model, the attributes will be locked, so I need to unlock them. Actually, I might as well use one of my handy scripts. Here we go. The rig mirroring tool has some options for quickly locking and unlocking attributes. AntCGI club members can download this and all my other scripts, so go grab them if you can. Select all these and click Unlock. That's done. Okay, I can move this out here now, and I'll make a few more copies. Not sure if I'll need them, but we'll see. Rename the first one to Twist Ribbon. And the next one to Curve Ribbon. Actually, not sure I need the third for now. The others will do just for this quick demonstration. Select the new ribbons and then the base ribbon. Go to Deform Blend Shape and create a basic blend shape node. Ideally you should name it, but I'm just going to leave it for now. Now select the twist ribbon and go to Deform Nonlinear Twist to create a twist deformer. I'll just rotate this. If I adjust the start angle, we can see it has a nice gradual twist. Select the other ribbon and go to Deform Nonlinear Sine to create a sine deformer. I'll rotate this too so it fits. I can adjust the amplitude attribute now to see the curve. And we can use the offset attribute to control its movement. Let's go back to the blend shape node on the base ribbon. At the moment both targets are set to 0, so we aren't seeing them affecting the cylinder. Let's set twist ribbon to 1. Now I can edit the end angle and it's affecting the main ribbon, which is then twisting the cylinder for us. Let's make the joints visible. Actually, I'm going to make the rotational axes visible too, so we can see them rotating a little clearer. Okay, that's better. So we can clearly see a gradual twist, and you can imagine this working well on an arm or even a tentacle. We can even edit either end. Now let's turn twist off and curve on. You can already see the cylinder change shape. Adjusting the offset gives us a nice wave motion on the cylinder. We can also adjust the drop-off so the ends are more static. We can also still use the controls while we have the blend shape active. Okay, we should be able to. I know what's happened here. We added the blend shape after we added the skin cluster. So the order of the deformation is wrong, so we just need to fix that. I'll just isolate the base ribbon. I'm going to right click on the ribbon and go down to Inputs and then All Inputs. I need to change the order so the blend shape's influence happens before the skin cluster. That way, no matter what the blend shapes are doing, we will still be able to use our controls. The ribbon moved, so that's worked. Let's bring everything else back. Much better. So, we can have the curve now and still move the cylinder with the controls. As you can imagine, you can use as many blend shapes as you like. I usually have a curl set up for my tentacles so they can roll up, plus some other custom shapes to make poses easier to achieve. So that's the basic setup of a ribbon along with some of its uses. There is a lot more we can cover, but I will go into more detail on those as we move through the next series of videos. The main thing is you now know how to create a ribbon, so in future videos I can skip over this section so things don't get too repetitive. Right, time for the surprise I mentioned earlier. Well, it's not much of a surprise if you've watched my videos before, but I've spent some time writing a new script to help you when creating ribbons. Now it's really important you know how to build them yourself, but this will just speed things up for you and for me in future videos. Up here we have all the scripts so far that are available to AntCGI Club members. This is what we want. The ribbon tool. Let's look at this section first, the custom ribbon. If we use the default values, so with 5 divisions, and click Build Custom Ribbon, this is what you get. A NURBS plane with 5 sections, and all the follicles and main joints added. It also has a length of 10 centimeters. We can change the orientation from horizontal to vertical, undo this one and create a new one. There you go, so this is better for legs or a spine for example. We can also change the way it's facing. At the moment it's looking down the x-axis. If we change it to y, now it's looking up. And Z will make it face forwards, which is probably the way it will be mostly used. I also added the ability to change the way the joints are orientated. This can be useful depending on the base skeleton, so you may need to adjust this to stop the ribbon from twisting or looking wrong. You will see what I mean in future videos. So here we have the joint's Z-axis, pointing away from the ribbon. You can invert it, so it points towards it instead. There's the obvious ribbon name. You can also add a crease into the ribbon. You can see it better if I hide the grid. So this is useful for bending knees or elbows. Again, I'll demonstrate this more in a future video. Although it works better when there's a joint here too. Maybe set this to 6 instead. That's better. So that's just the basic options. What you can also do is add controls to it. And there we have the controls added. They also affect the ribbon too. Everything is grouped to keep things tidy. I decided to add this option in too, snap to selected joints. Let's say you have a skeleton already built, so something like a leg. You can select the 3 main joints, click build, and the ribbon will snap into place. All it does is it just snaps into the position, so there's lots more that will need setting up before this is usable as a leg rig. Things like this curve need addressing too. Just painting the weights would fix this, but again, we will go over this later. That section's good for building basic ribbons, which are straight, but there are times when you need a more custom shape. When building a facial rig, for example, so I added this part here. Let's just create a sphere and use it as an example. Just make it bigger. Let's say I need a curved ribbon to follow the contour of a character's cheek or maybe around his eyelids. I'll select the outer edges first and then click Outer Edges to store those. Now I'll select the inner edges and click Inner Edges to store those. There are two curves now telling us where the ribbon should be built. I now click Generate Ribbon, and there you have a nice curved ribbon with all the follicles and joints. I'll undo that. Just as before, you can also add controls too. And there we have 3 controls. So what if you needed a closed loop, maybe a ring around the eye or around the mouth? We just do the same. First we define the outer edges, and then the inner ones. There we have the curves. This time we have to check closed loop. Let's create the controls too, but this is optional. There we have a full loop with controls at each joint. The problem is the ribbon is inverted, so let's undo that. Reload the tool to refresh the window. Now let's check Flip the ribbon. That's better. Finally, it's not very animator friendly with all these controls. What we can do is use the ratio menu here to dictate how many are created. So when it's set to 1, there will be a control for every joint. If I set it to 2, you will get one for every other joint. And 3 creates a control for every third joint, and so on and so on. So it just makes it easier to animate. So that's the ribbon tool, and there is a point to me showing this to you. Through the rest of the more advanced videos, I will be using this tool to quickly generate the ribbons for me, so it made sense to show it here, so you aren't wondering where this tool suddenly appeared from. Don't worry if you don't have this tool, because you can manually build the ribbons, just as I've shown you earlier in the video. However, the script will be available to Ant CGI Club members, just like all my other tools, so sign up if you want access. As this script took me a while to create, it's classed more as a larger script, so it will be available exclusively for those on the Superfan tier. Well, we've come to the end of another video. Thanks for watching right to the end, and if you found this video useful, please hit that like button to show your support. While you're at it, you could also subscribe and enable notifications so you're kept up to date with future videos and community posts. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below and I will try my best to reply. Alternatively, you could post them in the Ant CGI Facebook group or the Ant CGI Discord server, where I spend more of my time. You can find links to both in the description below. Remember that you can also join the Ant CGI Club to help support future videos while also earning exclusive rewards. Alternatively, if you would just like to show your appreciation, why not treat me to a coffee at my coffee page? The link is on the screen now and in the description below. Thanks again, this is Ant CGI signing off, and I will see you on the next one.